Hey everyone, welcome to episode 4 of the Word Wise Webb. I am your host, Dr. Sarah L. Webb. So the weekly word for this episode is aesthetic. So I would define aesthetic as an adjective that means something is related to beauty or related to ideas of beauty and taste and style. If you use it as a noun, then it means it's your philosophy or your belief or your theory about beauty, about what is tasteful or beautiful or stylish, okay? So to use the word in a sentence, I will say that I choose my hair based on aesthetic, practical, and political reasons. Another sentence might be, I choose to define and embrace my own aesthetic rather than subscribing to oppressive beauty standards. One of my pet peeves since going natural is when folks ask me, what are you going to do with your hair? So what are you going to do to your hair? I had an epiphany recently that this is actually a racial microaggression. So I wondered why I rolled my eyes or got so frustrated by the question, and it's because that personal boundary had been crossed. Do we ask women of other races and ethnicities what they're going to do with their hair? Other women can just let their natural hair fly and flow freely the way it naturally grows from their head, and no one asks them, so what are you going to do to that? So what are you going to do with your hair? At my high school graduation, for example, this black dude who was extremely colorist tried to insult me by asking that same question. So what are you going to do with your hair? He asked with a smug smirk on his face. I shrugged and said, put a hat on it. It's a racist standard that black women with natural hair are expected to do something with it, aka tame it for special occasions such as weddings, graduations, concerts, school dances, proms, job interviews, just everyday work life existence. In this world saturated with anti-blackness, racism, and white supremacy, we are conditioned to dislike a natural black aesthetic. We are conditioned to prefer more white or European or simply non-black aesthetics. Now that applies quite obviously to hair, but it can also apply to other things like facial features, body type, and even your fashion sense, at least until white celebrities want to appropriate that. We have been fed for centuries that some European woman's aesthetic is the universal standard of beauty. And more recently, for a lot of black people, it doesn't even have to be a European aesthetic, just anything that's not black. So that could be Southeast Asian, it could be Native American, it could be Latina. Never mind the fact that you can be black and Latina, etc. I'm simply explaining the language and the attitude that has circulated amongst African Americans for far too long. Of course, I can't do a video on natural black aesthetic without addressing the notion that natural black hair is simply not professional. Here's some food for thought. If your idea of a professional look happens to be exactly the same as a naturally European or white or non-black look, then your attitude about professionalism is a racist one. There's no look that's inherently more professional. We decide what's accepted as professional based on what has always been portrayed as professional. And that portrayal has been dominated by white media and by white-owned corporations and institutions. Now, we all choose our own aesthetics, and that variety is beautiful. But be honest with yourself about where your aesthetic preference comes from. Yes, your preference can be a racist preference. Not unlike the Ku Klux Klan, who prefers that only white Christians occupy this country. Your preference can be racist. So I invite us all to do some introspection and ask, why do I prefer X? Why do I prefer straight hair? Why do I prefer lighter colored eyes? Why do I prefer lighter colored skin? Could it be racist conditioning brought on by the media, the larger anti-blackness, white supremacy, and racism of this country/world? I think hair is simply one of the most salient examples because no other race of women goes to the extreme lengths that Black women do in order to change and alter the natural appearance of our hair. So I know this is a touchy subject, but I had to speak my truth on it. Let me know in the comments what you think, and we'll have a dialogue. What's your aesthetic?